Thank you for the kind of introduction. It's really a great honor and pleasure to be part of this community. Right. So I only have a PDF, not a PowerPoint. I had a physics major, but I hate engineering stuff, so I never do PowerPoint. So sorry about that. Yeah, right. Doesn't work. I should be pointing somewhere. Oh, the other one. Okay. Sorry. So that's my past theoretical physics doing. So I'm pretty sure, many of the presenters before me and after me, when they approach the issue of disabilities, they approach it from the idea of equality and dignity. So I call it equal dignity approach. It's kind of interesting, the religious and the secular disagree on many things, but on the issue of equality and dignity, there seems to be this mainstream idea. And of course, in spite of the agreements, there are disagreements about the definition. We have seen already what the meaning of the disabled is, and what does it mean of equal treatment. You know, Amartya Sen famously had this capability approach that really makes us reflect on the issue of equal treatments of the disabled and the so-called able-bodied people. But still, as I said, you know, the idea of equality and dignity seem to be the mainstream idea. And today, I try something different. You know, do we have to have equality and dignity in order to have account of treating the disabled well? So that's what I'm trying to do here. I think one reason for me to do this is just my personal, fondness of anything politically incorrect. But a more official excuse is that we live in a pluralistic society. Not everyone believes in equality and dignity, or not everyone believes in a certain interpretation of that. So if that is the case, if we want to have a more inclusive approach to the disabled, maybe we should conceptually engineer account of treating the disabled well without using certain concept of dignity and equality. And the two texts were two traditions I chose. One is Plato's Republic from the Western tradition. The other is more in my own field, early Confucians, in particular Confucius and Mencius. Both sides reject the idea of equality and dignity, or they don't talk, they ignore the idea of dignity. As we see, Plato, as expected, has a rather disturbing account of how to treat the disabled. However, Confucius and Mencius would offer something different. So first, Plato in the Republic. We know Plato never speaks up in any of his dialogues, so it's really Socrates, the character in the Republic. In Book 2 of the Republic, Socrates praised a doctor, Asclepius, and the praise is that, let's see myself clear, yeah, it should be on next page. So he said, this doctor revealed art of medicine for those whose bodies are by nature and regimen in a healthy condition, but have some distinct and definite disease in them. But with bodies disease through and through, he made no attempt by regimens to make a lengthy and by life for a human being and have him produce offspring like to be such as he, on the ground that he's of no profit to himself or to the city. So clearly there is the idea of euthanasia, but in a more disturbing manner. And then, more generally, he said that in the ideal city, a law for both arts and medicine and judging should be set down, which will care for those of your citizens who have good natures in body and soul. Well, as for those who haven't, they will lie die the ones whose bodies are such, and the ones whose soul have bad natures and are incurable, they themselves will kill. So basically, he's saying that for those who are physically disabled, the ideal city should let them die. And for those whose soul is bad or disabled, metaphorically speaking, the ideal state should even kill them. So it's very unflattering message he tries to convey here. And then in book 5, Socrates really offers the first account of eugenics, right? He said that we'll make the most beneficial marriage secret, and meaning we only allow the guardians, the best and brightest and the strongest, to reproduce. But for the common people, they're not allowed to have sex. If they do, if they produce children, those children will be left outside. And so people often say that what has been offered so far is a sort of a idealized version of Sparta, and we know Spartans have done a lot of those things in reality. And so later in book 5, Socrates said that for soldiers who are captured by enemies, we'll give those soldiers as gifts to enemies, because to them you should die for the country. So it resonates with a famous saying by the Spartan mother to her son: either come back with the shield or on the shield. So in sum, according to Socrates, in the Republic, pregnancy with fetus that is not likely to be of the physically and mentally best should be prevented. Infants with clear disabilities should be killed. Adults with not easily curable diseases and lacking certain virtues should be let die or even be actively killed. So that's his account. And then right. So then what is the reason for doing all this? According to Socrates, a sign that a city is badly managed, a bad city, is that it needs a lot of medicine and court. So basically, if there are too many doctors, medical doctors and lawyers in a state, it's a very bad city. I think I just offended half of the people in the room by saying that. But it's Socrates, not me. I'm just conveying his message. In terms of medical doctor, he says, needing medicine not because of one has met with wounds or some of the seasonal maladies, but as a result of idleness and the way of life. That is bad. That's why this bad city needs so many doctors. And then he gave the example of Herodotus, another legendary doctor. He said, this guy, attending his mortal disease, he wasn't able to cure it and spent his whole life treating it with no leisure for anything else, mightily distressed if he departed a bit from his accustomed regimen. So now we see that for him, idle or bad medicine means that this kind of medicine, where the people they try to cure with this medicine are of no use to the city, idle in that sense. In contrast, a craftsman, he said, had a definite job, and if he couldn't do it, it would be of no profit to go on living. So, so in that sense, a craftsman is even better than this legendary doctor. So in general, Socrates said, for all men obedient to good laws, a certain job has been assigned to each in the city at which he is compelled to work, and no one has the leisure to be sick throughout life and treat himself. That's his comment on Herodotus. So we see that for him, a life worth living means having a profit to himself or to the city. So far we see that all this message is extremely disturbing and troublesome. But still, I think just to try to see some merit of this, of all he has said so far. We live in a society with this obsession with radical individualism and personal pleasure. So if Socrates were alive today, he would say, this is the city, in a way, sick to its core. And so he's offering medicine for the sicknesses and disabilities of contemporary societies. In particular, some people, especially conservative thinkers, complain that nowadays dignity, especially the rights, are used to defend wrongs, right? And I think Professor Huxley mentioned this case. If I eat, kind of about the famous dessert of Italian dessert, tiramisu, right? Sorry, it's just unforgivable. How can you put it? So if you eat tiramisu every day, right? Then I get diabetes. I get my legs cut off. Should I be treated the same as someone who is born with with no legs? So the first issue is, what kind of health is worth having, right? And now we have that miracle, weight loss drug, Ozempic, right? How much the society should pay for that drug for people to lose weight. I mean, for someone fat like me, it seems to be okay. But then gradually, when those people lose weight, then there will be the fattest 5% who has the need. The fattest 5% is always there. So it's a constant push. So that's the first issue. What kind of health deserve to have? Secondly, if you have, there's this modern obsession with health. But the issue is just like Herodotus, right? What's the purpose of having a healthy body, right? And for that, it came to me. I didn't put it in my paper yesterday. It came to me a very famous saying by a very important philosopher, Woody Allen. And in his movie Annie Hall, he said that there is an old joke. Two ladies are talking to each other. One said, the food here is terrible, and the other lady said yes, and in such small quantity. And then he said, that's Woody Allen said, that's my view of life, full of loneliness, sadness, suffering, and it goes back, it goes so fast, right? So I think that's the people a good example of this sort of a dilemma of a modern human being, right? They lose the purpose in life, but they have this myth of preserving this purposeless life forever. So I think, even a few thousand, more than 1,000 years later, Immanuel Kant still asks the question, is a life with not graced by any pure and good will, deserving to have happiness? So in that sense, I think Plato, in a very troubling manner, forces us to ask that kind of questions. But clearly, it's very troubling. And in particular, I think that the idea of profit and use to the city is very ill-defined. It's all, in the first few books, it's all about physical strength. Gradually moves to intellectual capacities, but still, physical strength is emphasized. So for that, I turn to the Confucian part. And on the surface, actually, Confucius has something similar. He has an old friend. This old friend is, when seeing him, is very impolite, showing a very casual manner. And then Confucius said to this old friend that when young, when this friend is young, you had no humility and respect for your elders. When growing up, you made nothing worthy to pass on. When growing older but now dying, you're a thief. So you should die. You don't deserve to live. Of course, kind of a joke to a friend. Then he rapped him on the shin with his staff because he's sitting just like that, right? And he tried to correct his posture. And so, although apparently similar, I think Confucius offers something quite different than what Socrates said about the worth of life. So, in order to have the worth of life, you could cultivate your morality and become you can even become a sage by being a member of the society, by being, showing your respect for others. So it's not just the physical, your physical capacity, rather your mental or moral capacities that prove the worth of your life. And Confucius doesn't go that far. Mencius even said that anyone can become a moral sage. Anyone can prove the highest worth of life. by his or her own effort. So for the early Confucians, one's worth, even if one is physically disabled, one could still prove his worth by being a member of the community, serving the community, by being a virtuous person. Even for that matter, even someone with Down syndrome could show that he or she is a virtuous person. So in that sense, an intellectually challenged person can still prove his worth, which is quite different from the picture in the Republic. But then, what about that kind of case mentioned in the Republic? The person diseased through and through, right? This person has no way of doing anything physical, or even showing his or her virtue, and this person has to be cared for all the life, right? What about that kind of person? And I think for that, the Confucians have another tool to deal with that kind of person, namely the famous Confucian concept of ren, or humaneness, or benevolence. So Confucius said that if someone has no humanness, then all those other things, rituals, music, water, are not worth having. Mencius, I don't know if because I couldn't see what I'm showing there. So Mencius, elaborates on this idea of benevolence. He said that anyone, and benevolence or compassion is universal. And he has a kind of imaginary conversation with a king. And so then the king asked him, so how do you know that everyone has compassion, including me, probably apparently, immoral king? He said that, how do I know this compassion is universal? Then he does what I call a thought experiment. He said that just imagine, if a small baby who is about to fall into a well, maybe who is about to be killed, right? Would you feel a sense of alarm and distress? I think this is one of the best designed thought experiments in the history of philosophy, because he's talking about the baby, not the adult, right? Baby has this stronger image of innocence. If his adult is, he just offends you yesterday, so let him fall, right? You might have different reactions, but it's a baby. And also he asks you, when you suddenly see this, right? You have no time to realize whose baby it is, right? It could be your enemy's baby, but you have no time to tell. Also, he asks you, how would you feel? Not whether you would save the baby, right? To save the baby demands more effort. So when put it in this way, it's very hard to say, you have no sense of distress, alarm, a sense of compassion. Then he says, so you see, compassion is universal. Compassion is the root, the beginning of humanness, or Confucian benevolence, right? And then he said, actually, there are three other things. So actually, there's a lot of controversies in this passage. But one thing, I think he makes a strong case for the universality of compassion. Then he says the three other things are also universal. It's sort of like a bad merchant. He says, okay, you look, this is a beautiful product, right? You said yes, and then said, of course, these three other things are also beautiful, right? Without offering any proof. But I think one thing we can be clear about is that compassion is really key to his argument. Among the four so-called cardinal virtues, Confucian virtues, compassion is really the most important thing. The other issue that I think he shows the universality of compassion, but he doesn't say why this should be taken seriously and as a foundation of morality. But he simply takes it as it is. He says somewhere else, this compassion is really distinguishes us from beasts, animals. Then he makes really a metaphor that is very much relevant to us. He says, so there are these four germs of the four cardinal virtues, and so these four virtues are like the four limbs of our body. If you grow them, you'll become a morally great man, a big man. If you don't grow them, you become a morally small man. Actually, in today's Chinese, if you say someone is a small man, it's a dirty word, right? It came probably from Mencius. A small man in a sort of moral sense. So in a way, literally for him, almost literally for him, if you fail to grow your morality, you are morally disabled because your moral bodies are not complete. So in that kind of understanding, we see that the reason we need to care about the disabled, even the disabled have no way to show the worth of the life by doing anything physical or doing anything moral, right? Even for that kind of sick person, is not the dignity of that person, is rather the morality of us, the duty of us to take care of the seriously disabled people, and so it's out of our own humanness. It's in order to make our own life worth living, to help the disabled. So that's the ultimate foundation the Confucians offer. But we know compassion is totally missing in any of the Platonic dialogues. Probably that's one key difference. Why one theory could have account for treating the disabled well, the other doesn't. Instead of giving a summary, so maybe I'll just end by a quote by a later Confucian, Zhang Zai, about 1000 AD. He said that, so I'll just read, his passage. The passage is so famous, and he himself liked the passage so much, he put it on the western wall of his study room. Kind of self-absorbed in a way. But anyways, it is a very beautiful passage. He says, "Heaven is called my father, and earth is called my mother, and I, this tiny thing, find an intimate place in their midst." So in that sense, every human being is my siblings. And he goes on, he says, even everything is a companion, right? So I have this, almost mystical connection with the whole world. And so I have to take care of them because they are my family members, right? And then in particular, he said that right, to be loving to the orphaned and the weak is a way to treat the young as the young should be treated. That is, to treat the young as the young should be treated. It's a passage from the Mencius, whom I already mentioned. And all in the world who are tired, infirm, crippled, or sick, brotherless, childless, widows, and widowers, they're all my siblings who are helpless and have no one else to appeal to. So here he offers a clear, message about why we should treat the disabled well. They are my family members in distress, and this is kind of lifelong duty. So he concludes this passage by saying, "Riches, honor, good fortune, and abundance shall enrich my life, while poverty, humble station, care, and sorrow shall discipline me to fulfillment. In life I follow and serve heaven and earth and all my family members. In death I shall be at peace." So I'll just stop here. Thank you.